Steven Bartlett has turned his content into a $25 million a year machine, and today we're going to break down exactly how he did it. From being a broke university dropout to a multi-millionaire content mogul, Steven Bartlett's journey is proof of the power of content done right. So in this episode, we're going to reveal the strategies he used to scale his brand and monetize his content. So Steven is a master at consistency. I mean, this guy built a media empire across podcasts, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, you name it. But here's the kicker. He's not just posting for the sake of posting. Every single piece of content is tailored to the platform and to its audience. So that's where the magic happens. Steven himself says consistency builds trust and trust builds authority. And that's true, whether it's his Diary of a CEO podcast or his bite-sized insights on Instagram Reels, he's always delivering high quality, high value content. And the result is an audience that keeps coming back for more. Now let's break this down a little bit more with a real example. So take one of his podcast episodes, like the one with the incredible Mo Gaudat. That single episode becomes a full YouTube video, 3 to 5 LinkedIn posts highlighting key insights, dozens of TikToks, Reels, and YouTube Shorts, a carousel post for Instagram that summarizes the main points, and even a blog post or a newsletter post. Think about it for a second. Steven films once, and then suddenly he's everywhere without needing to create new content from scratch every single day. It's pretty genius. So how can you apply this strategy? Well, start by building a content pipeline. So for example, let's say you record a 10-minute video for YouTube. Here's how you can repurpose it like Steven does. You can extract 2 to 3 key insights and turn them into short form videos for TikTok or Instagram. And then pull out a memorable quote for a LinkedIn post, then write a blog post or email newsletter expanding on the topic. Create a graphic or carousel for Instagram summarizing your main points from that episode. Now, I want to hear from you. What's one piece of content that you've already created that could be turned into 5 or more pieces of content? Here's the thing about consistency. It's not just about showing up every day, it's about showing up with intention. Now, Steven doesn't just create content, he creates systems around his content. So his system ensures that every podcast, every video, every post works harder for him than he does himself. So if you take one thing away from this, let it be this. Consistency isn't about being everywhere all the time. It's about making the most of the content you've already created and then showing up with purpose. Just like Steven, you can turn one piece of content into an entire ecosystem. And that's how you build a media empire. And when I say media empire, I'm not saying to become the next Fox or CNN. I'm talking about building your company into a media company where you can produce your own content consistently and build an engaged community of team members, employees, customers, partners, everyone who becomes evangelists and ambassadors for your brand, your mission, your values, and of course, your products and services. But when you can show up every single day with this consistency in mind and think of yourself, think of your marketing team, your entire company as a media company, as an up and coming media empire, that's where the magic will happen for transforming how your marketing is done for now and into the future for more growth. So do you want to create scalable, impactful content like Steven? Well, here at Content Supply, we help businesses turn ideas into full-scale media operations. You can visit contentsupply.com to build your content machine today. Okay, so let's address the elephant in the room. How can I consistently and possibly stay consistent when there's barely enough time to keep up with the daily responsibilities and focuses that you should and do have in your company and in your role? I hear this question all the time. Well, here's how Steven applies it. He does batch content creation. He dedicates 1 or 2 days a month to producing a bulk of his content, whether it's podcast interviews, short form clips. He creates enough material that lasts for weeks, if not months. And this approach is a game changer. So for example, let's say you block off 1 day each week to record, and then during that time, you could film as well. Film something like a long form video for YouTube, 5 to 10 short clips for Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, LinkedIn, a podcast episode that gets repurposed into multiple formats, audio, video. So this batching system not only saves you time, but also reduces decision fatigue. You're not constantly thinking, what should I post today? You've already done that by building a library of content that's ready to go. And it's plugged into a consistent system for content creation and distribution. Now, here's a big question too. How do I make my content actually stand out when everyone and their grandma is posting on social media? Well, the answer here is authenticity. So Steven Bartlett stands out because his content feels real. It's not overly polished. It's not really rehearsed. Of course, he films with a professional production crew, but what is the game changer for him and what helps him stand out is how he features his guests and their unique perspectives. The story and the message is not about Steven, it's about his audience, the viewer, us, and how the guests are seeking to serve them with their unique stories and perspectives. And of course, Steven shares his unique approach to things and ideas as well. And he's speaking directly to the audience's struggles and offering solutions in a way that's personal and relatable. So for example, he often shares behind the scenes moments or vulnerable insights about his entrepreneurial journey. And this authenticity builds trust. So for yourself in marketing, you can start by identifying your audience's biggest pain points. Are they struggling with time management, confidence, maybe growing their business? Well, speak to those challenges and don't be afraid to share your own story, your wins, your losses, because that's what's going to set you apart and ultimately have you be different than everyone else. So let me give you a quick example. Let's say you're in the fitness industry. Instead of just posting workout tips, you could share a story about your own fitness journey. What worked, what didn't, the lessons learned along the way, and the kind of content people actually connect with. So let's bring this all together. If you want to build a content strategy like Steven, focus on two things: consistency and authenticity. But before you do, you also got to make sure that you dedicate time for batch creating your content. So you're not scrambling every day to try to figure out what should be posted so that way you can engage and grow an audience. And don't be afraid to show the human side, your own story and perspectives. Okay, so to add a few more insights and strategies that you can apply that Steven does incredibly well is to consider that the ideas shared are not about him. So one thing I find interesting is that Steven is building a personal brand out of this, yet his podcast and his YouTube channel is not his name, but it's the Diary of a CEO. But he becomes the spokesperson and thought leader in this process. And as he does this, he's authentic. He talks to his audience by having a conversation with them. And he shares his values clearly, whether he's talking about entrepreneurship, mental health, his audience knows exactly what he stands for. So ask yourself, what do you want to be known for? Maybe it's your expertise, your honesty, or the way that you can motivate others. Define it, then make sure that every piece of content reflects that core message. Think of one word that could sum up your personal brand. Is it inspiring, relatable, and bold? Keep that in mind as like the through line for all your content and your messaging. Another thing that Steven does that most creators miss out on, most marketers, is that viral content might get you noticed, but connection keeps your audience around. So it's not about chasing views, it's about building relationships. Steven often says it's not about the number of followers you have, it's about the quality of the connection. He's constantly engaging with his audience, whether it's through comments, personal replies, or even community-driven podcast questions. So how can you deepen your connection with your audience? Start by asking questions, responding to comments, and making your content feel more like a conversation and not just a monologue. Another thing I love that Steven does is that when you listen to his podcasts or when you read a book, you're thinking, this is amazing, but then you don't really apply anything. Well, Steven is different this way because he takes the insights and acts on them and the feedback he receives from his audience. So for example, in one of his episodes, he shares how he applied a guest's advice about delegation to improve his team's workflow. So he's not just consuming information from his guest, but he's implementing what works best for his business and other personal applications. So consider doing this yourself and interact with your audience to show how you are applying what is being shared in your episodes, whether it's a monologue like this or in an interview format. And of course, we gotta talk about the storytelling side of Steven's show, The Diary of a CEO, in these long form interviews. The stories are about the guests, sure, and their unique perspectives shared, but they also serve the viewers in many ways. Here's how you can incorporate storytelling into your content. Start with a problem, add a relatable moment, and then show the transformation or solution. So for example, instead of saying, here's how to grow your business, you could say, when I started, I had no clients and no direction, but here's how I turned that around. You see the difference here? Today, we talked about Steven Bartlett's journey and process and strategies behind building a $25 million content machine. The main things to remember here is that consistency and repurposing and leveraging systems are non-negotiable for building your media company. Start small, but think big. Your content should work for you, not the other way around. So if you're ready to build your own content machine, like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. What's your next step towards content scalability? And how do you build your consistent supply of content? Because content is the future, and it is relevant now more than ever, especially with AI being in the mix. People are craving more humans behind their content and not just AI. And the way that you'll stand out is through your ability to consistently show up with a human story and building connection and community around what you stand for in your business. So start building your content supply today. We'll see you soon.